Debra Jackson.
Surprise. It got me worse. You did. It killed me. Sorry.
That must be my dynamic personality coming through there. Hi, I'm Debra Jackson. Guardians, God bless you for being out here. You remind me of the days when I was the chairman of the Placer Tea Party, and we had committed patriots like you that showed up to hear candidates come and speak so that they can make a reasoned and educated decision on who they wanted to vote for. So I just want to applaud you for coming out. Thank you. Okay, so can you hear me okay? Is it coming through all right? All right, let me tell you a little bit about my background. So I'm going to go through that, and I'll tell you why I'm running, and I'll tell you about my action plan. So my background is 31 years in law enforcement. I spent the first 10 years as a staffer. I worked for the Bureau of Organized Crime and Criminal Intelligence as the chief to the secretary, or the secretary to the chief. I said that backwards. Anyway, great guy. And from there, I went to the Bureau of Narcotic Enforcement, where I was the manager of the triplicate prescription program. That was a program that monitored doctors prescribing Schedule II narcotics. And so I was over that program. And then after that, I became the finance personnel chief for the campaign against marijuana planting when marijuana was still illegal in California. And I've always got to say, Idaho, you got to keep it illegal here. Just saying. So I applied for a job with the Sacramento Police Department while I was the finance personnel chief for the campaign, and went over there as an officer and served there for 11 years. I was a street cop for 8 years and then became a detective, and I worked robbery, burglary, false personation, and the warrants fugitive unit. So that was my experience with SAC PD. Being as I had that experience as a detective, I got picked up over at the Department of Justice again, but this time as a special agent, where I worked the Sexual Predator Apprehension Program and the Major Crimes Program, and I did some investigations for the Attorney General and his attorneys, some habeas cases. From there, I was recruited to go over to the Office of the Inspector General. It was an oversight agency, law enforcement agency, where we basically did criminal investigations for the higher level captains and above in the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitations in California. And they started a Bureau of Investigations over there. They asked me to come over to help them set that up. And that's also where I ended up learning how to write policy and procedure. I helped them write their manual. So that's a little bit about my background, why I'm running. I've had people approach me and ask me to run. Also, I just have a passion for public service, as you can tell. 31 years in public service. After I retired, I got involved with the Placer Tea Party. And within about 6 months, I became the chairman of the Tea Party, and I ran it for 4 years. We worked hard for conservative Republican candidates. We walked houses and hung flyers and met with homeowners that were home. And we also did phone banking for the candidates that we were hoping to get elected. And we held meetings much like this. We did do it every 2 weeks, and then we went to once a month, because you know how much work it is, and then, you know, finding a facility that would house everybody. So anyway, I did that. I got involved with Election Integrity California, a nonprofit group that worked on election law. I was their liaison and director of their legislative affairs. I would go and testify before the California legislature, the Elections and Redistricting Committee. I trained poll observers, that's what they were called in California. They had a lot more oversight than they do here in Idaho. Observers, we were a nonprofit. We didn't have to be assigned by a candidate. We didn't have to have a party chairman give names. We didn't have to give the schedules, the names, the shifts, and the locations that we were going to send our observers. I have the Sacramento, Placer County areas. I met with they're called ROVs there, registrars of voters there, and they're pretty much the county clerk there. They do pretty much like what Mary was describing her job was. And I met with them. I took their training, what they trained their poll workers to do. I took their judges training, and then I invited them to come to my training so that they could see how I was training my poll observers. And we had a wonderful working relationship. And I had a conversation with Ryan Ronco, who's the ROV for Placer County about a week ago or so. And he says the relationship is still going strong with the individuals that we trained and in his work with election integrity. So elections are a real big deal for me. I'm passionate about that. I think that we have a lot of work to do here in Boise County, and I'd like to spearhead that. We need some change in legislation, the way it's written. And we also need to have a more cooperative relationship with the county clerks in the poll watchers, is what they call them here, so that it's more symbiotic. I do have a complaint, and that is that, and it's not just Boise County, so I'm not isolating or targeting Boise County. When I make this statement, we are unable to view signature verification, and knowing what the process is, and knowing how, if you watched Rigged, or if you saw 2,000 Mules, which I haven't seen yet and I'm going to see in the next couple of days, you know how important absentee ballot processing it is. It's huge. And not to have oversight in any one area of that entire process, from the time they're mailed out, delivered, and returned, and the signature verification, that is a problem. I'm telling all of you guys and gals, it's a huge problem. And not to have signature verification, who knows? I mean, honestly, and I can speak on my own experience. When I worked in the 2020 election for the Boise County Clerk, I couldn't view a lot of the signatures to compare them. Now, I understand it was a computer software program dealing with one computer program integrating with a new one, the 10X solutions, and the integration wasn't seamless. But we've had since 2020 to fix that, and I'm not saying it's not fixed. I'm saying who can oversee that. We had a county commissioner ask just today, the Secretary of State. He ended up talking to the Deputy Secretary of State, Chad Hawk. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so forgive me. But anyway, he was denied the oversight. He just wanted to see the process. And because it has personal identifying information, PII, on the computer screen along with the signature, they were not going to allow oversight into that process. They knew this 2 years ago. They could have fixed it. They didn't fix it. We've got a problem, and it needs to be fixed. This is what happens in states that don't have tight oversight on their election process. You think you're red now, it doesn't take long or many elections to go to purple or blue. And we don't want that to happen in Idaho. I came from California, communist California. I was in the trenches there. I saw it firsthand. We do not want that to happen here. We want citizen engagement, we want oversight, and we want a very cooperative, not a hostile, interaction between the various county clerks in the state and the citizens who are donating their time and energy to get trained and to be cordial and to provide oversight and to write affidavits where they see election code being violated. I'm hopeful that we will have a good result with the election for Secretary of State, and I hope our legislature will get busy and make some revisions to election law that we need here in Idaho. So I have an action plan, of course, because it's Action Jackson. So A is for accountability. We need accountability in that office, accountability to the public on what we do and how we do it and how we handle the funds. We need customer service, improved customer service. When you come into the county, you want to conduct your business, and it's unfortunate if a person is off that day and there's no cross-training or there's no one available to help on your particular issue and you have to come back at a different day and time. And that's, very inconvenient for you guys that live out here. Gotcha. T is for transparency, and you'll be hearing that more tonight. But we need to have more transparency, and maybe that is, well, number one, I think we need a better website, because if anybody has spent any time on that website, it's very difficult to navigate. But we need to have absolute transparency with the public on what we do with the public funds. We need to also have integrity, and we need to have oversight, and we need action now. And so I'm saying that I put myself out there. I felt that I was motivated and encouraged to run for county clerk. I ask you to vote for me on May 17th. I think you'll really be glad that you did. And I just want to say, I think Boise County deserves better. And I want to thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you.
Questions? And forgive me for banging out your eardrums. I was trained in public speaking at Jewett Auditorium in Caldwell, and we didn't use mics. So I don't get them very often.
You certainly described the problem at the state level with the voting deal.
Yeah.
Who do you think is the one that's going to solve that?
I think it's going to be on a couple of different levels. I think the legislature has to go to work and revise some of the laws that they have on the books right now. And the Secretary of State needs to work hard to do that also.
And who's the best candidate to do that?
In my personal opinion, Dorothy Moon, all the way.
Okay. Other questions for Debra? Yes, sir.
You can hear me.
Okay.
Hi, David.
Hi, I'm David Jones. I live in Road Creek. I've been in Idaho 42 years. And my question is first of all, I'd like to thank you for your police service in the state of California. And I understand you've been here about 4 years.
I've been here 4 years, June.
And, one of my questions is you have a lot of experience in law enforcement, but in listening to all the avenues that the county clerk covers, how is your background going to benefit the county clerk position?
Thank you for that question. I think it's a good one. Okay, so one, I 31 years experience at reading laws and regulations, interpreting them, putting them into practice, and enforcing them, okay? So that's one. When I worked for the campaign against marijuana planting as a finance personnel chief, I handled upwards to an $8 million budget that could be spent only in certain ways. And so I can translate some of that. I'm going to say, I haven't done Mary's job. Mary's been doing it for 12 years, and I'm sure she's got it down pat. It's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for me, but I've handled large finances before, and I believe that I can do them here in Boise County. And so, did you have another part to your question? I think that relates to this job.
Well, the other part of my question is that your background, of course, is in law enforcement, and however you handle the dollars for the marijuana fund, we have no idea. But do you have any formal education in accounting? I mean, there's a
No, I don't, David. No, I
that
don't.
county clerk position covers, as we heard, a very, very broad spectrum. So, you're asking us to vote for you.
Yes.
In the hope you can do the job. But your experience doesn't really give me personally a lot of confidence in the fact you can get it done.
Yeah, well, don't vote for me then. And I know you're not going to anyway, David. But anyway, what I want to say though is I've done investigations, major fraud investigations, multi-year investigations, having to look into fraud cases, which deals with spreadsheets and a lot of money. I had to handle a lot of money myself when I was the finance personnel chief. So this isn't rocket science. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Jean, with this?
I don't need a
Okay.
microphone. I'm Betty Jean Mollenkoff, and I'd like to say as Mrs. Crisco was advising us as she started her talk, she went through the vast staff that she has that works for her. Each member of that staff has a different task, and Mary oversees their work. It isn't like she does it all. So that's something we should all recognize. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have a question?
Just real quick, is this your first time running for office?
I ran for office as a Republican Central Committee candidate in Placer County, and so I did that. I also ran, it was an internal, it wasn't public running. I ran for chairman of the Placer Central Committee, and I was not successful in that run.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have another
Go ahead, David.
Back to the signature verification that you brought up in 2020.
Yes,
You were physically working there at the time,
indeed.
correct? Okay.
I was working for your wife.
And who was Valley Dresser.
Yes.
Yes. And you were working for Mary, you weren't working for my wife.
Well, I reported to
My
Valerie.
wife was not the county clerk.
No, but she was chief over elections. So anyway, go ahead with your question.
Now, my point being is that there seemed to be some conflict with the signature verification.
Yeah, there was.
Did you approve any of those?
Yes, I was ordered to by Valerie Dressler and Mary Prisco.
So you actually approved something that you couldn't recognize.
That's absolutely true.
Okay.
As an employee of the county.
So you didn't refuse to do that because you couldn't, and you didn't.
Well, what I did, David, as you well know, is I advised that I was going to write a letter. I was an employee, a part-time employee for 3 months to do a job. And I told them I felt uncomfortable about doing it because my electronic signature was attached to the voters' file, that I matched their signatures as approved and as matched. And I said I felt uncomfortable about that. I was told to go ahead and mark them as matched. I said, I'm going to write a letter about that when my job's over, and I did. I wrote a letter, and I described the entire process and what happened. And Crapo, Reish, and Fulcher got a copy of that letter, as well as I sent it to Bedke, and nothing was done about it. The Secretary of State was informed of this. They knew that this was going on, and they did not have a solution in a timely manner for the 2020 presidential elections. Thank you.
So did anything come back from it as far as fraud?
They did nothing, like I said.
Okay, but nothing ever came back as far as this wasn't right, that didn't match up anymore.
They did nothing, David.
Right.
Okay, the gentleman in the very back of the room had a question. Just a minute, Mary. I'll get you. Okay, go for it.
In my opinion, I think it would have been a better idea in the situation you were in to refuse to do what you were ordered to do and force an investigation at that point. Why did you not do that?
I was a part-time employee for the county, and I did what I was told. I advised them of what I thought. I could have quit. I mean, I'm retired. I could have quit, but I wanted to learn what the process was here in the state of Idaho. I had come from California, and I saw how they ran their elections. This was really a learning experience for me on how Idaho handles its elections. And because I continued to do that, I found out that we have big problems here in Idaho, not just Boise County, in Idaho. And so we are taking that, we're training poll observers throughout the state, not just this county, and they're finding the same problems that we're running into here in Boise. And had I not continued to do this and finish that job, I did write the letter, I did what I said I was going to do, and I told them I was going to do it. I read the letter to Valerie Dressler before I sent it. I gave her the courtesy of doing that. She was very displeased about it, but I told her, I warned her, I did it. So I'm glad I had the experience so that I can share it with you all.
Okay, Mary?
Yes, I guess the question isn't really why didn't you do something, it's why didn't they do something? Because the problem really was the size of the signatures that you were trying to compare the actual signature to was exactly how small. I mean, it was unreadable, I understand. I looked at it.
It was a problem with the integration of the two different software companies, and they were aware of it. And Mary herself, she knows it, and she admitted it the other day at the Board of County Commissioner meeting. And I mean, it's not a secret, and it's not Mary's fault. She just happened to have been the elections clerk at the time. It could have been anybody, but they should have done something. I personally would have halted everything until it was fixed, or figured out a way to get those signatures so that you can verify them without having to mark them as approved without actually verifying them.
Gail Foster, Garden Valley. My question, I kind of feel like something's being tiptoed around here. It feels like to me that what's not being said is, were there going to be consequences if you refused to sign that? And it's starting to feel like almost like it was a bullying situation. Is this true, or are you going to just take that away?
Well, I was ordered to do it, and as an employee, I know how that goes, but I think that, let's say I quit. That's not going to solve the problem. Somebody else is going to do the same darn thing and mark them as approved. I wanted to have that experience. I have a testimony now because I lived it, I saw it, I was there, I witnessed it with my own eyes, I wrote about it, and if a lot of you get the Idaho World, I wrote a letter, it was published last week. Every word I said in there is true and it cannot be refuted.
Steve, you want to say
I don't want to use that either.
Okay.
They've been saying they need to do something. But they is the state, right?
Secretary of State
Right.
is ultimately the one that can fix this problem.
Right, so that's where the problem lies, is at the Secretary of State's level, the state level.
Yeah.
And I don't think you allow anybody to bully you.
No.
So, I don't think there was any bullying going on.
Okay, anybody else? Janice?
Yeah, Janice Corbett from Garden Valley. I just want to applaud you for standing up and trying to oversee something that you know is not right. As a postal carrier for the U.S. Post Office for over 34 years, there's voter fraud.
Yeah.
And it's a big problem.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you don't get control of it now, and take a step and do what you've done, because you could have easily, as a part-time employee, been bullied, forced to quit, whatever. I've been in your situation as a peon for the post office,
Yeah.
and I saw a lot of voter fraud, and every time you bring it to upper management,
So, speaking of bullying, I brought this. I pulled up to a mailbox because I put a sign up, and I just happened to look, and I was like, oh, there's my picture. And it's a cutout from the Idaho World. So some pervert stalker or Unabomber type cut my name and my picture out, and it said, California troublemaker, bad for Boise County, bad for Idaho. So I thought, you know what? Whoever this was that put it up has some of it right. I was a troublemaker in California. I started the Tea Party. We went against the rhinos in our own party. We went against the Democrats, and they just forgot a bunch of words. Bad for Boise County rhinos and people that are dressed up as Republicans that are really Democrats. And bad for Idaho. Yeah, bad for Idaho rhinos at the state level too. I own this.